Number 10, Stephen King's It. And other horror references, as a matter of fact. When you are down in the subway station, you may notice that the walls are almost completely filled with posters. While you might just dismiss this as something used to, create a creepy aesthetic or some ambiance with some disturbing looking posters, almost all of these posters are references to either a game in the Capcom wheelhouse or to some kind of films, or especially horror films, that have likely acted as somewhat of an inspiration for all the game designers and developers who have worked on the Resident Evil franchise. Namely, there is one in particular that caught my eye. It features a menacing looking clown with a closed-mouthed grin and is for a film called Party Party Party. The clown is also clutching a bright pink balloon. This appears to be a reference to the film It. Even the frilly ruffle around the clown's neck seems to be a nod to the main antagonist in It, the clown Pennywise, as do the thinly drawn eyebrows. Number 9, Mega Man. If you look through the toy store's smashed window in Raccoon City, you may have noticed a giant figure that looks like a familiar Capcom character, and some posters as well throughout that feature him. It's Mega Man, or is it? This Mega Man looks quite different from the one you might actually be used to seeing. His suit is completely different from the one that we know today. So although they look similar and have the same name, is this actually the same character? Yes, actually it is. This look of Mega Man comes from the original, often considered hideous, box art from the original game. So once again, this is an Easter egg from Capcom that both acknowledges their history and kind of makes fun of some of their more questionable artistic decisions. I love when people can laugh at themselves though, it's good. Number 8, Dr. Wily and Dr. Light. Another nod to Mega Man. You can find a poster referring to these two characters from Mega Man in the remake. The poster that they feature on appears to be for a scientific lecture featuring the two rival characters called Science Forum that you can attend on the 24th and 25th of October in 1998. Of course, we're not going to make it that far, but there you go. The poster also poses the query, will robots surpass humanity? An obvious nod to the battle that ensues between the two in regards to their different views on robotics and in regards to Dr. Wily's schemes to take over the world using his robotic army, once he turns on his former friend and colleague, Dr. Light.
Coming in at number 7, we've got Family Ties. Now that we've introduced the lady and some theories about her, let's discuss the rest of the family. We hear her refer to a few different characters very familiarly, like her little brother, who she seems to have a great deal of disdain for, and her daughters, who just seem absolutely nightmarish. Whatever going on here is a family business, all connected to that mysterious figure at the top. Again, we'll talk about that one soon. So if Lady Dimitrescu is quasi-nobility, the rest of the family must be as well. And if that's the case, they probably have a need to consolidate and hold on to power. What else does nobility do after all? The 3 locust-swarming, blood-drinking daughters are probably traditionalists, willing to do whatever it takes to ensure things stay the same. Of course, that leads to a lack of imagination and a tendency to lose one's mind over time, which makes sense considering how overtly bloodthirsty and crazy they are. And then there's the rebel Heisenberg. At least that's what I'm assuming. Lady Dimitrescu admonishes him a few times, claiming he's useless, which makes me think that he has his own way of doing things, different than the family tradition. Could Heisenberg be the bespectacled hammer wielder briefly featured in the trailer? Does he have the ability to telekinetically move stuff around? Why is he so taken with Ethan? Time will tell. Coming in at number 6, how long has Ethan been here? The timeline is hazy at best, with an unknown amount of time passing between the previous game and now. With Ethan's reputation preceding him, one has to assume that he's been around for a little bit. All the folks claiming to want to test him or that they're glad to finally meet him means that he must have been around for a while. He's not just kicking down doors unannounced, but what on earth was he doing during this time? It's implied that he was held captive for a bit, but then he escaped. Of course, his daughter is top priority, but something is missing here, and I'm sure it's being kept secret for good reason. Coming in at number 5, we've got candidates and rejects. In the demo, players can find a list in the mansion outlining a bunch of candidates and rejects. And what are they being considered for? Well, knowing Resident Evil, probably some sort of horrifying experiment that only some people are compatible with. Maybe it's a process that will turn someone into one of the weird shamblers in the basement. Or it could be a process that imbues somebody with bloodlust and the ability to turn into clouds of locusts. The mind boggles at the possibilities. Coming in at number 4, we've got red necklaces. If you look real close at the bloody-mouthed daughters, you'll notice that they wear some lovely ornamental jewelry. This plays into the theory that there are vampires about, as plenty of famous vampires in fiction have similar jewelry. Another theory folks came up with is that these gems are quite similar to the control device sacrifice put on Jill Valentine back in RE5, which leads us down a whole new path, one that implies that this family of gigantic women and levitators could be under the control of a more sinister shadow organization. Wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened.
Number 3. Safsprin and Aqua Cure. A pharmacy in Raccoon City features posters for both of these Umbrella Corp medicines. In the original game, fans may remember the importance of these two substances as they were used as passwords to open a vault inside an Umbrella Corp office, which would grant the player the oil additive if they opened it up. In the original game, a commercial would appear on a TV for either one of these medicines. Depending on what commercial you were shown, Safsprin or Aqua Cure would be the answer for the safe. So, if you watched, for example, the Safsprin commercial, then the password would be Safsprin. Also, fun fact, the giant poster for Aqua Cure that you see actually has a hidden password for a safe, so keep an eye on that poster and see if you can find that hidden password. It'll give you a laser sight. Number 2, Big E. One Easter egg found through one of the many posters you encounter in the game features the famous band Big E, which is also referenced to in the original game. Big E is a band whose hometown is actually Raccoon City, and they intended to return home to play a big show after finishing up their American tour. In the original game, we learned this concert was supposed to have taken place on the 30th of September of 1998, but the events of the game, of course, take place on the 28th, and with the T-virus outbreak, Big E were not allowed back into the city and actually saved from the fate of those who are trapped there, so they were unable to play their show on the 30th. Rain check. Zombie check. Zombie check. I wonder if there's ever an event like that for concerts. It's like, we need a zombie check instance. What will we do if there's zombies? Number 1, Resident Evil 6. A lot of players have noticed a connection between a movie poster that pops up and one of the more hated games in the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil 6. RE6 received a lot of backlash from fans of the franchise because of its design. It was more of a full-on third-person shooter with barely any horror elements, which is more what fans love about this franchise. Like, we're here for the horror survival feels. So despite being a commercial success, RE6 became a critical flop. Did you spot the Easter egg referencing it? There is a movie poster in the game for a film titled Disaster. While some fans have speculated it might just be coincidence, others are certain that it is Capcom actually acknowledging all the hate that Resident Evil 6 got and turning it into an inside joke. It appears that the layout of the poster has a similar look to that of artwork used to promote RE6. You'll notice the claw-like undead hand in the poster is in a very similar area and position to that of the RE6 promo art.
In at 10, The Keeper's Diary. Now, surprisingly, one of the scariest moments in the franchise wasn't a jump scare or a creepy boss or even a psychotic family hell-bent on hunting you down and eating you. No, it's a diary that can be found in the original Resident Evil game. In one particular moment, you come across the Keeper's Journal, which documents the effects of the T-virus infection, written by someone going through it. Slightly heartbreaking, but what really sent chills down many players' backs were the last 2 words. It simply ends, itchy, tasty. In at number 9, William Birkin's transformation. One of the most disturbing villainous transformations came from Resident Evil 2. The antagonist of the game, William Birkin, infects himself with the G-virus in order to give himself superpowers, but as we know, that never ends well. The virus causes a grim mutation, a giant eyeball grows out of his arm before everything goes to shit and he turns into an unsightly abomination. In at 8, The Executioner. Now, I've considered the fact that the Executioner was just a mini-boss in Resident Evil 5, but regardless, he terrified me. Any creature donning a black hood and wielding an obscenely large weapon that could obliterate you with one blow is not my cup of tea. Not only that, the entire boss battle is what nightmares are made of. Hordes of zombies coming at you while the sound of a giant rusty axe dragging across the ground gets closer and closer.
Number 7, Captain Commando. The poster featuring this Capcom character has likely only been noticed by some of the most hardcore Capcom fans. The poster itself in the game features a character known as Mars Carlyle, but who is better known as Captain Commando. So, who is Captain Commando? Well, he is a video game character who actually also had his own game. Originally, this game named after the character himself, titled Captain Commando, was actually an arcade game. It was a multiplayer optional side-scrolling game known as a beat-em-up style video game. In fact, Capcom actually re-released the Captain Commando title in 2018, alongside 7 others as part of a beat-em-up bundle, available for PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and Microsoft. Worth knowing if this Easter egg actually made you want to revisit Captain Commando, maybe replay it. Or if you haven't played it, play it for the first time, if you like side-scrollers. Number 6, Big Wave. So many Mega Man references in this game. In Raccoon City, you will eventually come across a shop called Big Wave. Big Wave is actually the name of a shop that you can come across in the Mega Man Star Force series. And this shop, in name at least, appears to be referencing that one. So there you go. It's the same shop, maybe? I mean, you can't go buy anything from it because, you know, there's like kind of a zombie apocalypse happening in Raccoon City. Number 5, Air Combat 1942. We could likely do lists on just the posters alone that are featured in this game. Another movie poster makes reference to another Capcom title known as 1942. 1942 is an arcade vertical scrolling shooter set in World War II. Oddly enough, despite being designed by a Japanese company, the goal in that game was actually to get all the way to Tokyo and blow up a fleet of Japanese planes. The poster in the game is also a reference to the film Top Gun in regards to its layout. So you got 2 Easter eggs sort of in one. Top Gun in 1942. Number 4, Stagla Gas Station. The Stagla Gas Station is a location from the original Resident Evil 3 game. Originally, this is where Jill would go to search for oil to power up a broken down cable car. It's a little darker than the original location, but still attracts you with the neon glow of its sign. It also shares the same logo as the original and also appears to be completely surrounded by smashed up cars. You also get to have a cool action sequence involving it, but I don't want to spoil that. So play the game and you'll play it yourself.
Coming in at number 3, Nemesis. Resident Evil 3 is arguably one of the most terrifying games of all time, for one reason and one reason alone: Nemesis. That's right, the antagonist of the game was one of the most chilling monsters the series had ever created. He's a hulking beast who bursts through walls at any given moment, taking you completely by surprise. In at 2, the dogs. What is it with Resident Evil and dogs? Please stop, they're absolutely terrifying, and there's only so many times I can shit myself waiting for these suckers to appear. This particular moment comes once again from the original Resident Evil game, and it's arguably one of the most defining moments in the entire franchise. The dogs were the first jump scare of the game, and as you would expect, no one saw it coming. You're walking down an empty hallway and then out of nowhere, a very bad boy jumps through the window and begins chasing after you. Then to top it off, another one comes jumping through the window after. The entire thing physically hurts me and is deeply upsetting. And finally, coming in at number 1, Iron Maiden. We're heading back to Resident Evil 4 with this number because honestly that game had some of the most disturbing creatures in gaming history. I'm shook. The most terrifying by far, however, was Iron Maiden. Yep, these creatures were covered head to toe in rusty nails and were virtually indestructible, considering they had the ability to regenerate damaged limbs. I mean, is there anything worse than being impaled by a dozen rusty nails? No, I didn't think so.
Number 10, Dodging Zombies. A lot of the gameplay takes place around infected zombies who appear at every turn. While they aren't super threatening to you as you play through and mostly keep to themselves, just the low growl that follows you as you move throughout the world and the anxiety that they bring makes for a pretty terrifying experience. Their presence reminds you that staying anywhere too long is dangerous and that their sheer numbers could end up being a huge problem for you, especially as you have limited ammo and it appears to take 3 headshots just to take 1 zombie out. Number 9, falling off the roof. Sometimes in order to get away from your enemies, you have to do something dire. In this case, that something is jumping off a roof. If you have a fear of heights, you probably won't like this moment very much. The only thing that makes it a little less scary is that it's more of a slide and then you fall into a cart, but of course that breaks and then you do take a tumble and you almost get smooshed by the cart sort of falling after you. So overall, a moment where you're like, will I die? Please no. But of course, you're Jill Valentine. You're not gonna die, hopefully, if you play your cards right. Number 8, Mutant Super Zombies. The main antagonist, Nemesis, appears to be able to transform regular zombies in the game into super zombies. The tentacles that come out of him appear to infect the zombies even further and give them bulbous heads with tentacles coming off them of their own. This appears to make them much more durable, by the way, when you're going up against them, which is both frightening and frustrating, as the standard zombies are already hard enough to fight.
In at number 7, the Licker. It's no surprise that the game that first introduced Leon Kennedy would have one of the most terrifying moments in the franchise. Meet the Licker. Yep, it's a creature that RE fans aren't quick to forget. As you navigate the halls of the police department, you come across the slow dripping of blood, and once you look up, it's not a sight that you'll soon forget. The Licker suspended upside down on the ceiling. Yep, horrifying. If it's any consolation, he's not that hard to defeat, but still, it's terrifying. In at 6, Hellhounds. So if Resident Evil 4 wasn't scary enough already, enter the Hellhounds, or Fangs as they're also known. If you take too long completing one of the hedge mazes, these little will come for you. Yeah, not only are they wicked fast, but they're just nasty and will try to tear out your jugular. Be warned. In at 5, Patient Zero. We're jumping back to the original Resident Evil for this number with arguably one of the most terrifying moments in the entire game. Patient Zero. Need I say more? Patient Zero is the very first zombie in Raccoon City, and when you finally encounter him, it's not only terrifying but also eerie and chilling. Proves that sometimes jump scares aren't the only way to induce a fright, and that slow linger is almost just as effective. Coming in at number 4, Lisa Trevor. Lisa Trevor was a human test subject for the Umbrella Corporation, and once they were done with her, she was not left in the best state, that's for sure. She's horribly disfigured, but not only that, she has killed a whole bunch of people, ripping off their faces in the process and wearing them Leatherface style. It's horrifying. What's worse is that in 2002 the game was remastered and Lisa was back. Worse than ever.
Number 1. He could use weapons? What's more frightening than the unstoppable Nemesis? A Nemesis with a flamethrower? Partway through the game, Nemesis gets a level up when Jill finds that he is actually capable of arming himself with and using weapons, like a flamethrower. So now, not only do you have to deal with when he gets to you, but he can also now target you at range as well. So it isn't just like he has to get there to hurt you. And he is even more frustrating to fight and scary when armed, especially when he gets his hands on a rocket launcher, because yeah, that also happens. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this list and that you have had fun playing through the remake of Resident Evil 3, or if you haven't played it yet, that you are looking forward to playing through it. And I tried to avoid any major spoilers for those who haven't played it through yet. So hopefully this didn't spoil it for you if you haven't played it yet.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Ethan's back, baby. This one shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, but we'll make sure it gets some coverage anyways. Ethan Winters, survivor extraordinaire, is back for round 2. After making his way out of the Baker plantation and rescuing his long-missing wife Mia, and then subsequently watching Chris Redfield execute her with a pistol, Ethan's on a new mission. It's not to find his wife or exact revenge though, no, he's got a new goal and it's quite personal to him. We'll get to that in a minute. For some reason, every person in this village he visits seems to know exactly who he is. From random passersby on the streets, to every mansion dweller, to the new enormous merchant known as the Duke. It's kind of odd, especially considering how little known Ethan should be. Before the events of the previous game, he was pretty much a nobody, save for the fact that his wife had gone missing. So something has happened since the events of the previous game to raise his renown through the roof. What could it be though? I suppose pre-death Mia could have brought some attention towards her family after being infected in Biohazard, or maybe their daring escape ruffled more feathers than they originally thought, and the people of this village were somehow connected to the Bakers and the people controlling the Bakers. Much to think about, indeed. Coming in at number 9, we've got Ethan's got a kid to save. Again, this one's a little on the nose, but there's plenty of related Easter eggs to pick out here. Like I said before, Ethan's quest remains personal, but for different reasons than before. In an earlier trailer, we watch Mia get filled with lead, and then a baby is put into the arms of Mr. Redfield. Not an extremely pleasant thing for a husband and father to witness, I'll admit. So what's going on now? Well, it seems as though Ethan is looking to retrieve his daughter. This pops up a few times in the trailer and gameplay, with different text prompts letting us know exactly what's going on. At one point we see a mission objective concerning a person named Rose. So is Rose his daughter? It could very well be the case. So did this baby girl get taken and turned over to the family of supernatural weirdos living in the village? Because that does seem to be the case. Seems rather unfortunate that this man who survived a crazy scenario in RE7 and then immediately has his kids snatched up and sold off to another family of lunatics with superpowers, so there's gotta be something special about the baby. Did Mia pass on some sort of infection to the child, imbuing it with latent abilities deemed valuable? Or maybe Ethan is more closely connected to these people than has been let on? Tales of ritual and blood drinking seem to imply that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, and if a little baby girl can help the baddies, I'm sure they have a lot to lose by letting her go back to Ethan. Good luck, tiny human. Coming in at number 8, we've got Lady Dimitrescu's origins. Now this one requires a bit of creative thinking, but I have seen a lot of folks talking about it. I did not come up with this idea myself, so take it as you will. We meet this enormous heartthrob of a woman who doesn't get called by name during the trailer. However, we do learn that she is known as Lady Dimitrescu, and she's a lady, a landowner, a descendant of nobility. So what kind of power can she claim then? Very interesting. But beyond that initial impression, we can glean a whole lot more. The big thing that most folks have been noticing is her size. She towers over absolutely everyone, giving a certain subset of people with specific tastes a very exciting time. In fact, some folks have estimated that Lady Dimitrescu is over 8 feet tall, based on how she has to duck under a door frame to enter a room. 8 feet. Holy smokes, she shouldn't have taken up villainy, she should have went to the WNBA. She could dunk from standing, given her wingspan. Bad height jokes aside, her tall stature, paired with her seemingly supernatural connections and the claws she wears on her hand, makes a lot of people associate her with the Tyrants. Wouldn't that make a whole lot of sense? She's the next iteration of the towering, horrifying, powerful genetic experiments that have plagued RE fans for ages. And with her extra human visage, as well as her even more impressive height than most, she could be a more perfected version of these things. Definitely worth thinking about.
Number 7, pop goes the stomach. When you find the case that contains the lockpick tools that you need to move forward in the game, it comes with a little surprise. The man you take it from appears to have possibly met an end you'll face later, although hopefully it won't end you. When you take the case from his corpse, his bulging stomach explodes. If you hate bugs, then this part will probably creep you out somewhat. After you successfully acquire the lockpick from the case and use it, a giant bug will attack you and attempt to infest you with its offspring, opening up your mouth and then depositing them inside via your throat. Fortunately, you manage to vomit them up, but the whole thing is pretty grotesque and disturbing to think on. Did I mention that later you'll be forced to encounter a whole army of these giant insects? Yeah. Number 6, fake outs. The number of times in the Resident Evil 3 remake that you think you're about to get away from whatever is chasing you only to be pulled back into a fight is astounding. Fake outs always get me in a game, especially when you truly believe you are about to actually make it out of something, when they make them feel sincere and then just pull away that moment from you. Show you a goal that you've almost reached, and this game has a lot of moments that do that well. One of my favorites is the moment on the rooftop with the helicopter near the beginning of the game. Sure, I didn't actually anticipate that I'd make it onto that helicopter, but I definitely did not anticipate it to go sideways that fast. All of the Nemesis encounters give us a lot of great fake out moments as well. Number 5, Brad Vickers. Poor Brad, he can't catch a break. When fans saw the Easter egg involving Brad in Resident Evil 2, they were excited. Despite having a small role originally in the games, Brad became somewhat of a fan favorite. He also became part of a huge conversation around a plot hole as well involving him, as we see in his timeline, because his head gets completely busted open, but then later in his own Resident Evil timeline, he goes on to become a zombie, which is like, if you have no head, how can you become a zombie? He dies gruesomely in the original Resident Evil 3, but then appears as a zombie in the original Resident Evil 2, whose story actually takes place after the events of RE3. In the beginning of the game, Brad almost instantly becomes zombified, but then later we see him again, and the person he's attacking he manages to spook by echoing their sorry. In other words, by speaking, which, zombies don't normally do. But don't worry, you later will get to play as the character who takes him on in this game and be the person to, blow his head off, basically. But don't worry, the gruesome death that he suffered in the original game still makes an appearance later on in the police station. Although it's not his death, but we still get to see that if you're a fan of it. Number 4, Jill is infected. Right off the bat, the game starts off frightening. You wake up in your apartment as Jill Valentine, the main character of Resident Evil 3. Not only is your apartment inherently spooky with all the shadows and being shrouded in a gray darkness, but there seems to be a theme of running water that for some reason really spooked me. running water gets to me in games. I don't know what that is. Something about waking up to a tap running or a storm or like a pot boiling always gets me in horror games. In this game, there's a storm going on outside and your window is open. When you go to the bathroom, you find you've left the sink running, and then as you go to turn the tap off and look down, you'll notice blood drip down into the water. When you look up into the mirror, your nose is bleeding, and then you begin to transform into an infected version of yourself. Basically, you're becoming a zombie. You fall down, your vision blurs, but when you get back up and approach the mirror, the infection only appears to be moving more quickly, getting worse. In the end, you lift a gun to your head and you take your own life, only to wake up in the next scene, remarking that your nightmares are definitely getting worse. It was all a dream, thank goodness. More fake outs, obviously.
Coming in at number 3, we've got vampires. And speaking of the pendant-wearing daughters, do we think they're vampires? Nothing official has been announced yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they turned out to be some iteration of the famed blood-sucking fiends. Like, if you pay close attention, there's plenty to imply that these villains are indeed vampires. In the previous trailers, Lady Dimitrescu is seen drinking blood from Ethan's arm. And in this one, we get a nice close look at her daughters. They seem to have blood all over their mouths and sharp teeth for liquid extraction. Add in their obsession with man blood and maiming people, and you've got a pretty solid case for some nasty night crawlers. Coming in at number 2, werewolves. And what's Dracula without Wolfman, right? Gotta love those classic flicks and that classic combo. Now, these creatures are even less obviously displayed, but a bunch of eagle-eyed individuals have claimed that there's a good chance Lycans will be making an appearance. In the demo, there is a huge caged beast that players can come across. Is it the same kind of creature briefly shown in earlier trailers? And how will these freaky things play into the overall story? And finally, at number 1, we've got Mother Miranda. Our final Easter egg has to be one of the most mysterious. All of the lore in the game seems to point in one direction, to Mother Miranda. Is she the true mother presiding over the main family here? Or is she more of a figurehead, one meant to be worshipped by everyone in the village? Both villagers and nobles seem to have a great reverence for this secret individual, and there's even a hidden statue in the demo that some are claiming is in the image of Mother Miranda herself. Could Mother Miranda have something to do with the kidnapped Rose? My bet is on yes.